hear the word
It's a
mentioned.
very actually we had this discussion today in the TechBytes RC channel because somebody brought up the fact that insurgent is a very insignificant, nebulous term, and there are lots of terms like that, like militant, or which basically means adult male these days, and a lot of people don't realize that any adult male who can join the military is a militant by the definition that they use based on the New York Times. So the definition of insurgent might as well apply to a country sending more troops to a country it invades. And you might say, well, they're insurgents, they surge of troops to the place. However, the way it's used is usually very deceiving, and terrorist is more associated with ethnicity now, and with a certain bunch of people, but you wouldn't associate uh, Angela Merkel with terrorism, even though in the eyes of the people who look after her, they call her a target, or a person who's potentially an adversary, and they will spy using the same law and the same pretexts
I
as
mean,
they do for other people,
I mean
and that's
sorry.
so. It's I try to avoid those labels in theory. Sometimes use quotes around them because it's not really clear what those mean. Even when they claim to kill a so-called terrorist or a militant, a lot of the time you have to bear in mind the ones that they kill with the drones, and they kill a lot of innocent people, like drivers and bystanders and completely incorrect people based on their metadata that the NSA collects. A lot of those people have not done anything yet, but there is suspicion that they will be engaging in what the Department of Justice, I think it's Eric Holder, would define as suspicious activity and being an imminent threat. These are two things that are in quotes. So they haven't done anything. However, there is suspicion that they're doing something suspicious and they might be doing something bad soon. Therefore, without trial, we assassinate them, execute them, and people around them as well. And I write a lot about this issue of drones because I think that opens the door to things which in 10 years from now will be applicable not just to Arabs, but maybe, as we see in the UK now, the xenophobia has been extended, in my opinion, from Arabs to East Europeans, and you see a lot of the anti-Polish and anti-Romanian thing. That shows you that it's a very easy victim to pick up. First, you pick up the people that look a bit different and have a tendency to be upset at the government, and then you extend to another group of people.
We're quite lucky because at the moment where we live, it's a very diverse mix of communities, and we don't have any major sort of social issues here. Everybody gets on with each other, and there's no real problems. The worrying thing is as you go further north up the country, maybe where migration isn't so large, in some of the sort of northeast areas, it's parties, and I don't want to turn this into a political debate, but you get parties like UKIP and the BNP, which will say things which people will follow and which people buy into, and then all of a sudden you have a large community blaming another community for all the wrongs of everything that's going wrong with this country, and it's nothing to do with the immigration at all. There was a very interesting article recently on London's Biggest Conversation, a very popular radio show in the UK. It's also available online around the world, and it's things like National Health Service wouldn't have survived without immigration. It lives off immigration, and that's how we've got the National Health Service we have. And there's a lot of other benefits that's been brought to this country, but like I said before, ignorance and small-minded people being led by other people with ulterior motives always spells trouble.
You're suggesting the only people
Sorry.
to lead the gullible are the ones that are the racists. However, remember that also the people who are further up the ladder, they use those people to incite the people to be distracted. So it's a bit more complicated than you put it.
It's not justifiable, but it's understandable. It's human nature to find blame somewhere else. I mean, we look at even the big cases. For example, something completely random now. Ian Huntley. When that story hit, Ian Huntley was arrested. He was a killer, by the way, for people that don't know. But the blame and the news reports after his arrest and trial were all about who was to blame. Was it social services? Was it the local police? Who didn't do this? Who didn't do that? why didn't they do this check? And it seemed that the entire blame of the actual crime from the perpetrator was shifted onto all the services that surrounded this person that should have known that he was going to commit a crime later in life. And it's human nature to want to find somebody to blame. Unfortunately, when it comes at the detriment of a community, that's when it's wrong, and that's when it needs to be stopped. But it's something that's always going to happen, unfortunately, and I'm sure we've seen a shift of blame that goes around this country, over the last 20 or so years, and it stays with different communities for a while, then moves on to another one, then you don't hear anything, and it's unfortunate, but we try our best to sort of put a stopper on it and say, look, this is wrong, you need to reassess. But some of these people are just so set in their mindset that, it's got to be this person's fault or that community's fault, and really there's no getting through to them. I mean, one look on Twitter, I've regularly engaged people who are members of the EDL, which is the English Defence League, and their sort of attitudes and towards many different people is just absolutely disgusting. But you can't get through to these people.
These people represent an opinion that's shared to some degree among a lot of people. They might not be supporting EDL. So this is just showing one facet of people's opinion. So let's assume, just assume for the sake of argument, that every person's got some capacity to hate a different group. Every person's got a capacity to hate a person of a different class, like this person's got a boat and a house, blah, 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 so I don't like that person. And every person's got a capacity to hate, let's say, a different age, a different gender, a different occupation, or something like that. And these things represent strands, and the fact that they organize into a group and manage to recruit people, those people are not therefore labeled I'm a UKIP supporter, when there is an element of these opinions in many people's. I share values also with horrible leaders like Bush and Obama to some degree. I couldn't say like every single thing they do I'm against. However, the growth of a certain strand and opinion, that may be a concerning. And the same goes for governments. Governments have hostility either against the Soviets or against something like the Venezuela control of the nation's control of the oil reserves, as opposed to corporations' control of the oil reserves. And they have certain attitudes towards that, and that changes over time.
Well, I think we've diverged quite dramatically from the original topic at hand. So I'm going to be the one to say, I think next topic, you've summed everything up quite nicely.
We were talking about storage online and
yes.
usage of which is fair enough, but I mean, these are things we didn't speak of before, and the important thing is, I guess, that if you're storing your files away, and by the way, I store my files online on my website, it's still accessible to anyone who wants to access them, but I'm aware that it's public, so I can proudly say my wife doesn't need to use Facebook because she puts her photos online, and over the past year plus she got like 150,000 direct views on like the images, so people actually access and they view it, and they can subscribe by RSS, so we don't have to rely on any third party to distribute and to tag and to do things like that. Facebook, I'm based in an article I saw yesterday, is serving 2,000 should we say transactions to UK police, and an article I saw last year said that the UK police is the third biggest user of Facebook. I think it's a lot more than 2,000 requests, but the point is that the point is Facebook and sites like that are the to-go place for those who require information about you, including private communications, and when it's obviously not the things that they would see publicly. What they want from Facebook is to see a lot more detailed information that Facebook would typically give to advertisers. What time is he using the computer? Who does he talk to? What does he say? Is he admitting something? Is he talking about his past, her past, who he likes, who she likes, whose wall that person visits a lot, and they can share this with authorities as well. And the more you give to those corporations that do cooperate like this with the NSA, it can be used. It will only be used against you. You know that it's not going to be used to your benefit. Nobody's looking after you and trying to, saying, "Oh, this guy's a great guy, we should send him a check by post and say thank you for being such a great Facebook user. They look for negative things. They treat everybody as a potential threat, and threat perhaps to, he might become a political party one day and beat Labour and Tories or something, and this is their concern. This is